Coming up on today's wrestling news, AEW Re-Signs Saraya.
Why the Young Bucks and Shane McMahon shared a photo and a flight.
The first ever two-night SummerSlam has been confirmed.
And WWE's Shawn Spears reveals why he left AEW.
I'm Adam Wilborn.
I'm Michael Hamflett.
And this is the news. So yes, let's talk about that contract situation with Saraya. A load of speculation about it over recent weeks. We knew her contract was going to be expiring soon. Wondering whether she was going to maybe head back to WWE or just leave AEW. But no, AEW has re-signed Saraya for another year. This report by Fightful Select. Sean Rossap, of course, of Fightful Select, saying that a one-year agreement has been reached between the two parties. Former AEW World Champion, of course, Saraya. She faced Jamie Hayter on Collision Grand Slam, which hasn't gone out yet, so I won't tell you what the result is of that match. But I will tell you, after that, she and AEW had conversations regarding her future. AEW, I think as we mentioned at the time when we talked about Saraya's contract situation, had an option year on Saraya, but this could well be a separate agreement from the deal she was originally on, so maybe conditions have been renegotiated or whatever. Regardless, a lot of positivity backstage after that match with Saraya on Grand Slam, and this means that her current contract will run until September of 2025. Rather surprised by this news.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the one of the primary emotions to this story today. Let us know in the comments below what you think of Saraya re-signing for AEW, because her run in general has been mixed. I think, to say the least, divisive might be another word. I don't want to
nice moment at Wembley.
Yeah, and look, like she's still
not this year, last year.
She's still relatively young, obviously because she got into the weirdness so young, as you know, not just as part of the Night Wrestling family, but even signing for WWE when she was still a teenager. So in terms of like all the stuff that we would normally say about wrestlers signing new contracts, in terms of the wrestler prime, in terms of what they could offer, Saraya still realistically has plenty. Ongoing sort of pairing with Harley Cameron is like the sort of weird, almost Scott Steiner in the main event Mafia offshoot of the Outcasts.
Yes.
Where they've kind of just like sort of carry on regardless, and she is from the beautiful South. However, it does come with, as has been the case with a lot of Saraya's career, a fair share of controversy. There's been obviously comments made, predominantly, I will say, by her partner online that have obviously upset much of the wider wrestling community for some of the various views that he's espoused online, which I'm not going to share here. But then also, as part of that, and as part of maybe some of her like pushing back of the criticism, there was an element of trying to bring that into her character. There was stuff that she said in a couple of post-show press conferences about kind of like taking some of that discourse that she generates online and like folding it into the gimmick, which I think is always like risky at best, to be honest. And you know, obviously here she was a pantomime character in the feud with Jamie Hayter.
Yeah, Saraya's Rules match, I should say, on Grand Slam.
That's been sort of effectively a cakewalk of a program back for Jamie Hayter into all things AEW. So maybe that's a case of Saraya just kind of knowing her place at the moment, rather than being the world champion, rather than being the featured player. We all remember her debut pretty much at the very top of the division, and how badly that went when she tried to be like right now I'm here, we can really get started. And
AEW Women's Revolution's happening. What do you mean?
Yeah,
Britt Baker from the beginning.
Yeah, so it's never really felt like a great fit, but who knows, maybe another year can change that.
Yeah, I think that note about the contract maybe not being extended but things being renegotiated perhaps could be an interesting wrinkle to all this. And the fact that this negotiation came on, I mean, obviously we're going to probably have chats regardless of what happened in that match, but I don't know whether, I'm intrigued, I really want to watch that match now at Grand Slam. We'll be, of course, reviewing it on the Collision Review on Monday on WhatCulture Wrestling podcast, of course. But yeah, I think the way that she'd been booked over the past year, arguably, and concluding with this, it's like if you're being booked in this sort of way, I don't know where she goes now from the Jamie Hayter match. Yeah. So it just felt like, oh, okay, both parties have kind of agreed, well, we'll do this, and then shake hands and head on separate. So maybe there was something in that match, and they thought, there's something there. I don't want to let this one go just yet. But yeah, let us know your thoughts on this, because I'm sure it's going to inspire a great deal of debate in the comments section below.
Indeed. And speaking of debates in comments section and the like, yesterday the wrestling space online was blown up by the latest interaction of Shane McMahon with some of AEW's higher-ups. Of course, there was the picture with Tony Khan that made it online a little while ago ahead of All In and the possibility he might be there. That's led to a bunch of speculation that like Shane McMahon will eventually be #All Elite. Could he be at the helm of the greater good, this John Moxley
He's the helm of power, I've heard.
And, the speculation is going to continue to mount following the photo that you've probably at this point all seen of Shane McMahon and the Young Bucks at an airport yesterday. Now, Cultaholic have come through with a lot of information about the details and the specifics of this. I'm just going to read through this at first and a little sort of thing to add on at the end as well. The story that they've put on says, a source who was on the flight notes that the Young Bucks and Shane McMahon were both on the 6:29 a.m. flight from New York's JFK Airport to Salt Lake City, Utah, which is a popular destination connecting flights to California.
6:29.
Well, look, yeah, but maybe is that counted as a red eye? I suppose it's not by that. It's not like an overnight. But the source went on to reveal that the Bucks and McMahon were seen speaking and laughing together prior to boarding the plane. Obviously, we saw them take a picture together. Shane was sat in the row directly behind the Young Bucks in first class, although McMahon claimed it was just a, quote, coincidence that he, Matthew and Nicholas were on the same flight.
But you would say that.
That was something that was also shared with some of us here at WhatCulture as well. Whether or not, I'm not saying that's the same or different source, but it's interesting to say if Shane McMahon was speaking to people, because plenty would, if you're a wrestling fan, like, you're going to pop up, what's going on here? So maybe that's a company line that's being laid out, who knows? Anyway, the report also goes on to add that the man and the Bucks didn't interact much during the flight.
Why would you? Just do it at work, probably.
And the three individuals ended up waiting back after the plane, presumably to take the pictures together, so it looks like the picture was taken after the flight. So yes, plenty of, it's not just the randomly meeting somebody in an airport, which was, there's so much smoke to this fire, man. Like,
Mercedes, wasn't it?
Shane McMahon and Mercedes money. Obviously then the picture that was leaked, like, almost had this air of a kind of a controlled explosion.
Yes.
I think when that went out the way it did. Wait, no, surely not. Like, I don't know. But this, like, is the most public offering of a, like, if nothing else, like a friendship that now exists between Shane McMahon and some of the biggest, movers and shakers within AEW.
Plus, it's the Bucks. Like, they love doing this sort of thing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, they're great at this.
Like, even if there's an out to this, and there probably is an out to this, let's be honest, it's ridiculous to even be sat here suggesting Shane McMahon being a part of All Elite Wrestling in 2024. But it's the Bucks, and they know that's going to start a few conversations for sure. But just funny. I bet if it is the case that nothing's happening here, right? I bet you when they saw each at the airport, they thought, I mean, this is hilarious.
We've got to make something of this.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe we've all just misread the signs. Maybe MVP isn't bringing in Bobby Lashley. Maybe he's bringing in Shane McMahon to take on Swerve Strickland.
I like the idea of Mox winning the title shot from Darby Allin and then saying, actually, I'm going to gift it to Shane McMahon. That's the match everyone wants to see.
That's Mojo and Kurt Angle.
The battle of the SmackDown GMs, of course.
Of course. Shane and Bryan, yes.
Yeah.
We saw them. It was like there was tension without ever being a foohead back in WWE. So finally, it's like in many respects, it's WWE's like McGuinness Danielson.
Exactly.
There's a similar law.
Yeah.
Similar law, if anything else.
Similar copyright strikes. That's for damn sure. I also, talked about the sources here and what have you. I've got my sources on the plane, and they said that obviously there wasn't much interaction between Shane and the Bucks when on the plane, except for one, which unfortunately has been missed out apparently after the flight took off, seatbelt signs had gone off, and the people were coming around with food. Apparently, Shane McMahon yelled, "Here comes the trolley!" So, want to report that? It's up to you, Shawn, and the like.
We're not just aggregators, we can be aggregated. So,
Right, SummerSlam. Let's talk about SummerSlam. 2 nights, baby. Let's go.
Yeah.
We knew that was going to be happening in 2026.
Yeah.
I was getting my years confused there. I was like, we're in 2024.
Yeah.
Not next year, the year after.
There was a gap where SummerSlam 2025 hadn't been announced yet.
Wembley. But that didn't happen. No, sadly. Well, not sadly, actually, because it looks awesome. It is going to be taking place on August 2nd and August 3rd. That is 6 and 5 days ahead of my birthday if you want to get your presents ordered now. You can find the WhatCulture address anywhere online. Or you can just shove money in an envelope if you missed my birthday this year. Just post it over.
WrestleMania 41, 10 days before my 40th birthday.
What present that is. But yes, most importantly, SummerSlam 2025, a 2-night affair going down at MetLife Stadium.
Yeah.
Oh boy, have I got memories of that place from 2019. WrestleMania 35, of course. It was a big announcement across social media. Everyone was sending it around. I sent it to the boys, obviously, when I saw that, along with the Shane McMahon picture. And there was a nice thing with Cardi B and Bianca Belair involved. Buzzing for that. Liv Morgan, I saw tweeting about it. Home, obviously, for her.
Yeah.
So it's in New York, sort of. It's in New Jersey, as we learnt to our peril in 2019.
Yeah, it's interesting, this, isn't it? It's yet another subtle way, I guess, in which like this WWE promotes compared to how Vince McMahon used to. Like, so they had WrestleMania 35, which we were lucky to be in attendance for, and perhaps more memorably at MetLife.
Less lucky to leave for.
Yeah, we'll get onto that in a second. Perhaps more memorably, WrestleMania 29, which had the fantastic New York skyline stage, the Statue of Liberty on top of the ring roof, all that sort of stuff. And it was always so, like, New York was so intrinsic to the branding, even though, yeah, you travel across to New Jersey, which in itself has its own beauty in a way, just a different kind of beauty to New York's. Scary beauty. Like, the New Jersey branding is now on the SummerSlam logo.
Yeah.
So SummerSlam, New Jersey. And 2 nights might mean that, yes, everybody can get home safely rather than be stranded in a storm, as they were as we were in April back in 2019.
Did you tent in the car park?
Well, I do anyway, but that's just when I'm in the queue. The 2-night thing is obviously the first time this has happened for a SummerSlam since WWE launched 2-night PLEs with WrestleMania in 2020 for the pandemic, but then obviously ever since WrestleMania's been there. And it's ahead of the 2026 SummerSlam where it goes 2 nights, and lots of speculation that this is happening for the Royal Rumble possibly in 2026 as well.
Everything's getting bigger, innit?
Well, this is it. Could the next evolution of the Big Four as a separation from the standard sort of 5-match B-level PLEs at this point being that it's just always stadiums, always 2 nights? Like, certainly feels like that's a possible direction.
Yeah, I mean, like, they've all got their own. I mean, SummerSlam hasn't, but it's the summer version of WrestleMania, basically. Yeah. And by God, would you feel it in comparison to the Philly WrestleMania? Ooh.
Yeah, that's another point as well. That time of year, at least they've got more chance of it being like nicer weather.
Exactly.
Like, it gets pretty chilly out there.
But yeah, especially with the gimmicks of the Rumble and one would presume going forward War Games, it's not like you're going to struggle to book main events for those 2 shows either. So yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. More wrestling, yes please.
It's like 3-hour SmackDown. Like, everything feels pretty cool right now. It'll be interesting to see if, like, in a few years, whenever, like, I hope this boom lasts as long as they can get away with, but if at any point at which business starts to dip, do they have to walk back some of these big... They are going
We're
big.
all smashing it all back down to 1 night for WrestleMania.
Exactly, you know. Watch the Vince McMahon documentary on Netflix if you want, but it talks at length in the bit where post-Attitude Era boom, all of a sudden it's like, how are all these things going wrong at once? Well, it was just because you did loads when you were hot and now you're not hot no more. So, like, we'll see, I guess, if this happens for SummerSlam. But yeah, at least for the next 2 SummerSlams, 2-nighters.
And we're going to be there.
Apparently
I don't know if that's official or not, but we're just trying to speak it into existence.
Yeah, we've done it with WrestleMania. We're not going to be there for that yet, but we are. So,
see you in New Jersey.
Can't wait for the Indianapolis trip for the Royal Rumble. Just
Go Colts!
I'm literally just asking questions.
Pat McAfee, you know, wants to fly us out. I'm not going to say no. My mum's called Pat if you need a reason. So there you go.
Is that...
Just put that out there.
That'll at least get you on his talk show, I think.
There's so much in common. We like the Colts. Pat, you know.
Look, if we keep going on like this...
We shout a lot when we probably should lower our voice sometimes.
If we keep going on like this, we're going to get in a lot of trouble with the chairman, which is what could happen for some of the wrestlers in NXT now that Shawn Spears is there. Or maybe not, actually. I don't quite know what's going on with his character. But he did speak out of character.
He's corrupting Brooks Jensen is what is happening.
Yes. To
gaslighting the poor lad.
Chris Van Vliet.
Hey!
He was asked if he had any reasons why he left AEW, and he said he had 10. No, he didn't. But he was actually, he spoke very kindly about his time in AEW and just kind of about his own personal aspirations, but reveals a bit more about why he decided to leave All Elite Wrestling, obviously having been brought in from 2019 as one of the originals, as Cody famously and infamously said, hey, he's going to play a coach. And that set up,
good hand.
Pretty much set up his entire character arc in AEW. He said, quote, I just think it came down to a personal want in terms of wanting to contribute a little bit more, both in front of the camera and behind the camera. I had a wonderful time in AEW. I have and have had a great relationship with Tony Khan. Right. You're never going to hear me say anything bad about that guy. Same with a lot of EVP's talent and everything. I had a wonderful time.
His opportunities were just not really there anymore, were they?
Do you know what this reminded me of? And obviously he ended up kind of changing tact a little bit, but I remember QT Marshall leaving AEW briefly and seemingly having aspirations beyond whatever role he occupied at the time, and then he did go back ultimately to AEW. But yeah, a lot of what gets forgotten in how the launch of AEW and the formation involved so many wrestlers was that those wrestlers might want to continue to wrestle. When did you stop listening to me for a funny thing that you want to say?
Well, I just heard that Mr. Marshall, when he left AEW, was actually just going to completely get out of business, start his own little bakery and just call it Cutie Pies. I'm really sorry, I knew you were going to call me out on that.
We've talked about him, we've been very aware of Keith Marshall for well over 5-6 years.
Yeah.
How and why now?
Don't know. I was thinking the other day, Jey Uso, what does J stand for? Well, we've never discovered that, have we?
Yeah.
What? What is it?
It's I get them mixed up, but it's Josh and Jonathan, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, Jay just says Jay. Should use his full name, really. It's like Homer J. Simpson. What's that J stand for?
You lost your mind.
I really like Shawn Spears, and I'm glad he's doing great stuff in NXT. And like I said, I think you could tell he was never going to be really utilised, and he saw a chance, a bit like with Ethan Page, to go and do something somewhere else. Ethan Page is slightly better right now than Shawn Spears, but obviously he's injured and what have you.
And we don't know when he alludes to backstage roles, what is he trying to offer as his influence backstage in NXT, and a good hand is as much a shoot as a work, and I don't know.
I watched another clip from that CVV interview, by the way. Shout out to Chris Van Vliet. It's one of the best podcasts out there, it's not us. Did you see the bit where they talk about him getting super kicked by Shawn Michaels?
Yes, I did.
And how he got the name Stan. This is, in fact, 5 stories for you today. You're lucky. Apparently, they're like...
6 if you count that Keith Pie joke.
And 7 if you count the Here Comes the Trolley. Yeah, he stood there with Hunter and Shawn, and he's like, oh, cool. So I'm going to get super kicked by Shawn Michaels. Sounds great. And they're like, right, what's your name? And he's like, Shawn. Shawn Michaels is like, well, no, that's my name. You'll be Stan. Thank you very much. Great, that. Good stuff by Chris Van Vliet. Go and check out that full interview. And while you're at it, why not check out this video right here? See you later.
I'm off for a Greg's.